Welcome back, film friends, to the Irish Film London podcast. I'm Niamh Brannigan.
And I'm Gerry Maguire.
Beautifully done. And we are going to bring you all the latest news on Irish film before handing you over to our interview today with Benjamin Cleary and Rebecca Bourke. Hello, Gerry. Since we were speaking last, you hosted the screening and a little Q&A of Love Yourself Today. How did that go?
Oh my God, that was such a nice experience. It was just a really, really nice thing to happen.
And did Damien sing?
Yeah, he did. He
God.
gave us a little a cappella number on stage.
So special.
Yeah, it was. Honestly, a really good crowd. We were at the Killen in Kilburn again. We've been there twice this year now. We had Ross Killeen, the director, and Damo there on stage with us. A really good, lively Q&A, which there was a lot of audience participation from. It's kind of this special thing where, like, Damo's fans are really, really engaged. So a lot of people who were in the audience, like, Damo actually knew them, personally.
Nice.
And there's people who would take the microphone and ask a question or shout something out in the course of the discussion, and he'd just be like, it's yourself.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice.
It was really
That's
lovely.
such an extra layer. That you don't normally get at Q&As. And it's also, it's great that it went well, because sometimes Q&As can go south.
Oh yeah, I've had bad Q&As as well. Like, and I'm not sure if I've had more bads or more goods, but yeah, it was good anyway.
Oh, good. And what are you watching at the moment?
So, been doing a lot of programming for St. Patrick's Day, for our Patrick's Day festival, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So I haven't been able to sort of sit and watch very many things, but I did catch up with I tried to catch up with the new series of Raised by Wolves, which has Niamh Algar in it and a really great cast. Ridley Scott produced sci-fi show that I'm really into. So what happened was I decided, okay, there's like 4 episodes of season 2 available now. I'll go and sort of catch up and see where I am. But it's been long enough since I watched the first season that I said to myself, I'll go and have a little recap. Looked up a little recap video. And at a certain point in the recap video, I realised I don't remember any of it.
I don't belong here.
I don't know what's going on. So it turns out I thought I had finished season 1 because all the episodes end on these great cliffhangers. And it got to a certain point and I kind of walked away from the screen and went, well, have to wait till next year to find out how that plays out. But no, I actually missed like at least a whole episode from the end of season 1. So
and did you give yourself loads of spoilers?
Yeah. In this recap, it was like the guy does this and then he has to go and find these things and he kills someone. And I'm like, what? No. Okay. So I am actually caught up with season 1 of Raised by Wolves now, and my plan is to get up to date with season 2 this week if I can.
Where can you watch Raised by Wolves? So
it's on HBO Max. So if you have access to HBO or HBO Max on any of your streaming services or channels, then you can catch it there. That's the best way to find it, I think. There's obviously great stuff on HBO.
I definitely need to catch up with that one. I'm myself the same. Like, I haven't really had a chance to kind of really sit down and get my teeth into anything, but I did last night go to the opening gala of the Dublin Film Festival, which was really, really cool, back in Cineworld, and it was like a full cinema, and the opening film was on Colleen Keown, which was beautiful. It was really, really special. Like, it's such a gorgeous example of really simple storytelling. I think in a way I kind of had this, because of all the hype about it and stuff, I kind of had this big spectacle in my head. I kind of didn't really know what to expect. And I was really kind of touched by actually just how lovely and simple it was. And it just hit all the right beats. It was really lovely. I'm really looking forward to more people seeing it. And it's gotten loads of nominations in the IFTAs as well, which is lovely.
It has. Yeah. So that's something that we should talk about as well. So, and Colleen Keown is a film that I'm dying to see. So I'm low-key jealous of your ability to go to Dublin and watch that last night.
The first ever Irish language film to open the film festival, which is very cool.
Yeah, I think the first Irish language film to play at the Berlinale as well. I think we mentioned that last time. Yeah, and I'm sure that like the firsts will keep coming. You know, I'm sure that the pins will keep getting knocked down for that one. But yeah, it's done really well in the IFTAs, hasn't it? Like,
yeah, so on Colleen Keown and Belfast both have 10 nominations, which is amazing.
10 nominations each, which is pretty incredible. I think on Colleen Keown is, well, I'm kind of assuming from what I hear in the industry that it's going to do really well at the IFTAs. Belfast obviously is just storming everything that it touches right now, with 10 nominations. It's worth mentioning that I said this on Twitter during the week, but I think this is quite special. The IFTAs, in the lead actor category, they nominated Jude Hill for Belfast, and it just gave me pause for thought. Like, Jude is obviously the lead actor in Belfast. He's the young actor that plays the little boy in Belfast, and he's obviously the lead actor. He's in every scene. It's something that is quite clear if you've seen the film that he is the lead, but we don't really talk about him that much. Yeah, maybe because he's not a big name yet, and maybe because he's a kid. Yeah,
it is a funny one. Even on Colleen Keown last night, the young girl in it, the kind of cast and crew gave a little intro, and they all said, you know, it's for her, and the director kind of said he said, you know, the film kind of rests on her shoulders, which is a lot of pressure, but he was like, you've done it now, so it's fine, there's no pressure. But it really kind of is like these kind of child stars come out, and I think there is that you are anxious about putting too much pressure on them or putting too much spotlight on them, but also you want to really appreciate how incredible they are. Like in Belfast, he just carries the whole film. I really think that he's just fantastic, so it's really nice to see him nominated.
Yeah, absolutely. It puts me in mind as well of do you remember Woody Norman? He's the young actor who was in Bruno a couple of years back with Diarmuid Murtagh, and he's in that new film Come On with Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh yeah.
You know, like, he's a young actor who I think Woody gets a bit more recognition, but obviously, like, the roles that he's playing are so meaty. Yeah. You know, they're so substantial, and you do wonder. I think it's more special for a child to pull something like that off, obviously.
Yeah, agreed. You know? It's really impressive. I'm a bit like, I'll pack it in.
Yeah. But there are actually a couple of other films that got IFTA nominations as well. Mostly it's just Belfast and Colleen Keown, but there are a couple of others as well.
And to go along with this podcast, Swan Song got 6 nominations.
It did.
Which is very cool. And then another film that we were saying earlier that we've kind of missed a little bit that we're definitely going to need to have a look at is Who We Love, also got 6 nominations.
Yeah, like, that film has actually... I'm at pains to admit it, but I actually didn't really know about it until I saw it in the IFTAs, so that's definitely a blind spot for me.
Well, I think it's always nice though when stuff like that pops up and you're like, oh, because, you know, it's getting recognised in that way. Do you know what I mean? You're not kind of, it's nice that stuff, it's not like, oh yeah, sure, I know who's going to be nominated, you know, so when stuff pops up like that, it's always quite nice. But there's loads of like the nominations for leading actor. We've got Angeline Ball, Niamh Algar, Gemma Leah, all of which we have had on the podcast already, so if anyone's listening and fancies going back and listening to those, definitely do. And then with the males as well, there's Erin Monaghan, Redemption of a Rogue, Mo Dunford, Donal Healy. I mean, like, just so much talent, and we've had them all on already. We're going to need to have them back on again, I think.
Yeah. Donal Healy podcast during the festival was really good. Erin Monaghan's episode was really funny, actually, in that darkly funny way that Redemption of a Rogue is. Yeah, definitely worth checking those out again. Yeah,
it's a really, really strong year, I think, and I'm very excited to see who's going to win. But also, and then staying on that kind of same vein, then the Oscar nominations, Belfast has just absolutely...
Did Belfast get Oscar nominations? Did it?
Did I hear? Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't aware that. Yeah, 7 of them. 7 Oscar nominations as well. That's amazing. Like,
amazing. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Obviously Ciarán Hinds and, you know, like loads of, and also kind of behind the scenes stuff as well for Belfast. But then also we have Jessie Buckley in there nominated for The Lost Daughter, which is really cool.
That is really, really cool. Yeah. The Lost Daughter is a really powerful film. Like, I think as a directorial debut from Maggie Gyllenhaal, it's a really special film.
I think it's quite brave as well.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a taboo subject, right? Yeah, so it's really cool to see it getting recognition, and Jessie getting recognition because she's obviously brilliant as well.
Oh, so good. And actually Paul Mescal's in there as well.
We like Paul. We
do. So what's next for Irish Film London? We've got our St. Patrick's Day Festival coming up.
We do, yeah. So that's the reason why I haven't been able to watch many things, really, because I've been trying to put that together. So we've got a little festival coming up, which is taking place in cinemas, online, as usual, but also, and this is quite important and special, we're back in Trafalgar Square this year for St. Patrick's Day in London.
Praying that it won't rain and sleet and snow like before.
Right, yeah. It'll be my first year on Trafalgar Square, actually, so I'm looking forward to it in lots of ways. But yeah, it's everyone's first year since 2019. You may remember in 2020, if you're a follower of what we do, or if you're part of that environment of Irish culture in London, that the St. Patrick's Day parade and Trafalgar Square Festival is like a big event in the city every year. We sort of paint the town green like they do in New York and lots of different places. But it was one of the first major events to get shut down in 2020 when COVID came along. And I think after that, it wasn't long before almost everything else was being shut down.
Yeah, we were really, really ready to go. And I remember Kelly she just had to make the call kind of like the day before. Yeah. And then also, but that was the birth then of Irish Film from Home, which is really cool.
So yeah, that's just true. Maybe all these things have happened for certain reasons.
Yeah.
But it's exciting to be going back. So it's the usual festivities. Big parade that starts off at Hyde Park and comes down to Trafalgar Square. The big stage at Trafalgar Square and the giant screen. We've got short films that are going to be on that screen throughout the day, which is really super exciting. There's opportunities for filmmakers to see their work up there on a massive screen in front of, I think it's 8,000 people is the capacity in there.
Wow.
We've got a little stall. We're going to be there. You might see some celebs, might see some Irish movie celebs if you come down to the stall. That's a sort of a cryptic thing for an activity that we're doing, but I'm not going to give it away until we get there. And and of course we're in the cinemas and we're on Irish Film from Home. So we've got a couple of really exciting feature films that we're putting on. We are screening what I believe to be the UK premiere of Fosca, the new Irish language feature from it's a debut feature from Sean Breckna. Features Donal O'Healy, is set in Connemara. Fosca was the film selected by IFTA to represent Ireland in the Oscar Foreign Language category this year gone by, and has been honoured with IFTA nominations this year as well. So it's extra special to see it in there. We're really looking forward to that. That's playing at a lovely little independent cinema called Catford Mews, which is in southeast London, and it's a beautiful little 3-screen indie cinema with loads of little foodie stalls and street food things and a great bar, and it's kind of tucked away in an old shopping precinct that's being slowly redeveloped, and it's a really beautiful venue that we're happy to be in. We haven't done much in Lewisham before, so it's quite nice to be there. We're back there later on in the weekend for a screening of Secret of Kells. So that's probably, I think we started about a year ago with Wolf Walkers. We did Song of the Sea later on that year, and now we're doing The Secret of Kells. So we're kind of doing, it's the last in reverse order. It's the last of the trilogy of cartoon saloon features, and that's got the usual kids activity with it. Cavitar Arts are going to come down and do a nice craft workshop with us in the foyer at Catford Mews. So then on Monday the 14th, we are over in Riverside Studios in Hammersmith, where the Irish Film Festival London was held in November, for a really special screening of the new film Wolf. Wolf is the second feature by Natalie Biancheri. It features George Mackay and Lily Rose Depp, Paddy Considine in the lead roles. Our friends Lola Pettigrew and Fionn O'Shea are in there, as well as a number of other great Irish cast. It's a film that was shot almost entirely in Dublin. The first film to shoot during the pandemic, I think, but it's a really special film. And fingers crossed, we'll get the director Natalie and hopefully some of the cast down to that screening as well. So take a look for all that.
Oh my God, so much.
There's loads of stuff, yeah. All the details of that should be up on the Irish Film London website, irishfilmlondon.com. Sign up to our newsletter to stay in touch with us and find out what's going on. And take a look at our socials at Irish Film London to stay abreast of all of the developments. And I'm going to mention as well, before I forget, Irish Film From Home has got 2 really special short film programs that are playing during the festival, and they're going to stay up for the rest of the month after that. A feature, a documentary program and a fiction program. So check those out as well.
Brilliant. That is so great. That's so exciting. So nice to be back. St. Patrick's Day Festival, Irish Film London are coming back to festivities. It's going to be brilliant. Well, I think it's time to hand our listeners over to the interview. We hope you enjoy it, and I will chat to you soon, Gerry.
Chat you later, Niamh.
Bye. If you're part of the regular Irish Film London audience or want to get more from your experience, consider joining our growing family of members for a range of exciting benefits. Irish Film London is a non-for-profit organisation. Our mission is to promote the best new Irish film to audiences all over the UK, and with the help of this podcast, the world. If you become a festival friend or a festival champion, you get perks like discounted tickets for films and events, free access to Irish Film From Home films, and invites to networking events, and so much more. So check it out now. I'm joined by writer and director Benjamin Cleary and producer Rebecca Bourke to chat about their stunning new film, Swan Song. So thank you both so much for coming on to chat to me today. I really appreciate it. Ben, you're in LA, and Rebecca, you're here in Ireland as well. So an international call.
Thanks for having us on, Niamh. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
No worries. It's both of your first features, and what an exciting first feature. I gave a brief intro about the film before, which means that we can just dive straight in, which is great. So Ben, I'll start with you and asking about the inspiration behind Swan Song, and I guess kind of how long the process took from getting it from script to screen.
Yeah, wow. Long process, about 5 years. I started writing this. I had the idea about 10 years ago when I was in film school, and the initial idea, and then actually finally started writing it about 5 years ago after I pitched it to my team, and they said that they thought this is the one we should try and make as the first feature. Where it came from, I suppose, like all my ideas tend to bubble up from real life experiences that I've had, even if like this, you know, it's a completely imagined premise and film. I sort of tend it tends to build off something that's happened to me. And what, you know, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I lost a few friends that were, you know, it was sudden and sort of in tragic circumstances. And I saw, you know, and felt the ripples of grief that spread out when something like that happens to everyone who's left behind, and what it's like to have no goodbye. And then in the years that followed after that, I think I started to just constantly think about that, you know, and worry about, well, what would happen if someone else I loved passed away, or what would happen to my family if something happened to me, to the point where I think I was kind of catastrophizing about it, and it was becoming this sort of cycle, you know, where it was really affecting me, I think. And you know, didn't go see anyone or anything like that. You know, back then, I don't think I knew anyone who was kind of doing therapy or anything like that back in Ireland or anything. I think that's changed now for the better, which is good. But back then, that wasn't kind of, not that it wasn't an option. It didn't occur to me as an option, I think. So anyway, long-winded way of saying that I think this film all came about from those experiences. And when the premise popped into my head, even though it's completely imagined, I saw that in it. I saw what I was kind of exploring. Knew it was going to be a pretty painful one to explore. And I think that's probably one of the reasons it took me so long to write it and stuff like that. But yeah, that was kind of the process of it coming into fruition.
Did you find kind of that you kind of took breaks in it? You know, you stepped away from it and went back to it. Did you find it was kind of like healing in a way, along with, I imagine, quite a lot of stress down the line?
It was deep. Yeah, it was very cathartic, actually, the whole process. I think the whole 5 years, in the sense that, like, you know, I had to sort of just think back on things that I hadn't thought back on, you know, or had kind of just really tried to block out. And so that was difficult. I definitely remember there being moments where, like, I'd be writing and then it would just really affect me or something, and I just sort of, I'd get like anxious or things like that. And it was a really strange thing. But I've kind of like said, I've sort of joked before of saying, like, the whole 5-year process feels like a really long overdue form of like self-therapy or something. Which is, yeah, whatever, you know, but it's like kind of, it's been even on set, there were times where, like, I think there were times where all of us had a moment or two on set where we just got really hit by it. And I think that was one of the things that I found from writing a story that comes from a personal place like that. You know, I think that people were finding their own connections to it, and it felt like that the fact that I'd poured a lot of that into it actually meant that people were receiving it in a way that felt sort of personal, and we all were kind of finding our own way that we were sort of personally affected by it or something. And that manifested quite a bit on the shoot, where different people at various times would really find that they were personally hit by it, and that was quite strong, actually, I think. And it spoke to that process of really just going in personal and not being afraid to put that emotion into your script, I think.
Definitely. And I don't think there's going to be one person that's going to watch the film and not think, you know, would I do this? Or I would have loved to say goodbye to someone or have last chat with someone, or like, it just opens up so much relatability and questions in the audience. It really is fantastic. So Rebecca, how did you then come in on the project, and what attracted you to the project?
Well, Ben and I have been working together for a few years, and then he sent me the script, and like, I remember exactly where I was, exactly when it was. I sat down and I didn't stand up until I'd finished it. I really connected with it. We share some of the friends he's referring to, so it really resonated with me. And as you said, like, I don't think anyone can get through it and not relate to it. You know, it deals with so much. And it's funny, I met a filmmaker earlier today. He said to me, he just watched it last night. He absolutely loved it. And he just said to me, like, he sat through the entire thing, and he was focusing and watching the movie, but he was also like, oh, what would I do? Like, would I do this? And his partner is quite sick at the moment. So he just said it really resonated with him. So I think the great thing about it is that everyone can relate to it. You know, we've all loved and we've all lost, unfortunately, and it's part of life. So it's I've just realized you asked me a question I'm not even answering for you.
No, you are. No, you actually.
I'm gone on it.
Because I did ask, what attracted you to
well,
the
that's
project?
what attracted
Exactly.
me to. That's what attracted me to it. Sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent, but and then so Ben and I obviously been working together for years, and then he sent me the script, and Anonymous Content are like represent Ben, and they had come on board as the production company studio as well. And Ben proposed me as a producer to them. So I'm very lucky. It took a little bit of persuasion, but they eventually came round.
Good.
Yeah, and I just feel very, very lucky. It was a challenging project, but it was the best thing I've ever worked on in my life. Even though it was hard, it was incredible, and we learned so much. And now that a bit of time has passed, a little bit of time, you know, and you're able to step away, I'm full of pride, and can't wait to get stuck in again.
Good. Well, I think they do say, if it doesn't cost you anything, it doesn't mean anything. So that's definitely very, very clear. But I think the dilemma itself, and the premise of the film is so fresh and new. You know, they always kind of say, oh, everything's already been told, it's just kind of how you tell it. But I don't think this has been told or really kind of dived into at all. So obviously you have an amazing cast, which was just blown away by the performances that were in it. So Ben, kind of what was that casting process like? Did you have these particular actors in mind, or did it just kind of all start clicking together as you got closer and closer to production?
I've never written with any actors in mind. It hasn't been part of my process. Certainly when I was writing it, I didn't think I was going to end up getting a master like Mahershala Ali or just the wonderful, you know, Naomi Harris, Glenn Close, Awkwafina, Adam Beach. Like, you know, basically I just got my first choice in every role. So that's just a dream. And I think it's very rare to get that. So I feel really lucky and privileged that happened. The process was, it was great, actually. So I'd flown out to LA and pitched it. So in the space of a week, I think I came out, I pitched it to Apple, and they were into it. That I think the day of the pitch, they got straight back and said, we want to make it. It was amazing. The relationship, a really, really great relationship started from that moment in. They loved the script. They said they loved it, and they stayed true to their word all the way through. They never tried to make me to turn it into something else, you know, which could easily have happened, because you could take this premise and make a very different film, you know, much more action-y thriller or something like that. That was never on the cards. But yeah, so I pitched it, and then we'd managed to get it into Mahershala's hands somehow. He's represented by Anonymous, so I think it happened that way. And I wasn't expecting anything, but I got word back, I think like the day after I pitched to Apple, or a couple of days after, saying he loved the script and wanted to meet. And I was like, whoa, because like I just adore his work. You know, I think he's just one of the best actors out there. And so that was a pinch yourself moment. And then I read the script with him in mind. I think it was a night before we met, and I was so close to the material. I'd been so close to it for a while. I'd lost objectivity, and it was just, I couldn't really see it, but I read it with his voice in mind and him in mind. And like suddenly the whole thing just came to life again. It was amazing. I was weeping at scenes I hadn't gotten emotional about for like a year or two. So that was amazing. And then I met him, and, you know, walked into the room back in the day when you could actually, you know, physically go into spaces and meet people in person. And it was brilliant. Just from the first minute or two, all of my nerves about meeting such a big star and such a legend went away, because he's such a great soul and just such a lovely person. And then we sat and we had one of those amazing couple hours of kind of chatting and getting to know each other, speaking about the script, speaking about life though, connections to it, like all those kind of things. I just knew I was sitting across from someone really, really special, like how he was speaking about the character and just about everything. I was just getting more and more energized. And so that was the start of the casting process. Getting at the end of the meeting, Mahershala said, I want to do the movie. There was no like stuff after, whatever. He just went, let's do this. And so that was kind of just incredible. And then from then on, when you're lucky enough to get someone like Mahershala to sign up to the movie, it changes the entire casting process, because every actor wants to work with Mahershala, you know? So you're able to get the script into the hands of people you just wouldn't have had a chance to. So after that, it was quite, I wouldn't say easy, like casting is tricky and there was loads of roles and all that kind of stuff, but it was certainly made a lot easier by his involvement. And Mahershala was producer as well, which was really helpful for us. And it went from there, you know, like Naomi, Mahershala helped to get it to her. I had an amazing conversation with her, and she signed up. And then that was the center of the whole film, because it really is all about that central relationship. And then we went from there. I think Vicky Thomas, our brilliant casting director, our very first meeting, she was like, what about Awkwafina for Kate? And I was like, wow, that's a really interesting choice, because I'd seen her in The Farewell, which I thought was a masterpiece, and I thought she was phenomenal in that. So I was really interested in Awkwafina for that. And then Glenn, again, it was one of those, like, to get Glenn Close in the film, it was one of those things where I just was like, there's no way we could get her in. But again, I think Mahershala, and I think having Naomi on at that point too was really helpful. And then we had just a really great Zoom, and she had brilliant ideas for the character and how to flesh out the character a bit more. And it really made the script a lot stronger. So I did a rewrite, got it back to Glenn, and she signed on. And that was it really. It was kind of a dream process for your first film to sort of have as hassle-free a casting process as that. But it really did center around Mahershala and the fact that, you know, at the end of the day, this is really, he's in every single film, sometimes as himself, playing both roles. So that was the casting process.
I was even just getting starstruck just trying to bring up the topic of the casting process. I could only imagine how that whole thing was. And it's so great that he was kind of the first piece of the puzzle. And it is so important, I think, to have people around you. I mean, when they're a big star, it really helps, but to have people around you who just really believe in you and believe in the project, because I imagine when you're so in it yourself, sometimes you can dip in and out of like, oh God, what am I doing? Or, you know, is this right? But when you have people around you like that, who are like helping driving it and really believe in it, that's just, what a dream. That's just so gorgeous. And what a challenge he had to play 2 parts, and like not even 2 separate characters. That nearly would have been easier, like 2 of himself, but both having different wants and different needs. And, you know, one has weeks to live and the other one is kind of waiting for permission to live. And so what was Marshall's approach to this? And like, did you guys workshop stuff before, or was it just kind of straight in and see what happens?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I like a huge breakthrough in the writing process of this film was when I realized when I really stepped into Jack's shoes, into the clone's shoes or the duplicate shoes, and started to realize what an interesting character he could actually be and how 3-dimensional he could be. And you just mentioned the context or the stakes that they're facing. You know, one has got a few weeks to live and the other is suddenly not sick, but you know, and has everything ahead of him, but he's got this barrier of himself there, and he knows he doesn't believe in him fully, and can't fully believe in it. So it's just a really interesting 2-character thing. And so that was a big breakthrough. And then bringing that through and speaking with Mahershala about it, you know, it was, I remember really early on, one of our first meetings where we started to actually dig into the script and the character. He started speaking. It was amazing because he spoke about like, well, what, you know, based on the fact that Cameron kind of has the weight of the world on his shoulders and he's just been like facing this really horrible thing for a while, I think his lungs might be a little bit tighter than Jack's, you know, like in a totally subtle way. Like it's not like he's going to start suddenly doing this totally different voice or anything, but just that the lungs are tighter. And I'd been such a fan of Mahershala's physicality in his performances. You know, I think he finds it's just incredible how almost chameleon-like he can be, you know, whether it's in True Detective, finding the different ages of that character, or, you know, Juan in Moonlight, like how he you know, held himself, or as Don Shirley in Green Book. It's incredible how his spine and his physicality changes. So I got really excited as I started to hear him speak about how he might approach some of those things. And then as we went through, you know, we always wanted to do it in a way where, unlike a lot of kind of clone or twinning films, there's a very clear identifier, you know, between one character and the other. It could be something, you know, some facial difference or hair or whatever it is. The very point of Swan Song is that they're completely and utterly identical. They do wear different clothes in the facility, but, you know, we wanted it to be where actually the whole point of it was that they were really similar. And so he had to find the difference in the internal world of the characters. And I just thought how he managed to pull that off was incredible. You know, I remember with the wonderful Nathan Nugent as our editor. And I remember early on in the edit, we'd sort of sit there marveling at like how we just knew straight away which character was which by the subtleties that Mahershala was bringing to the different performances. And look, I think when you write a part like that and you plan it and all, you're taking somewhat of a risk, you know, and there, you do have to be a little bit brave and say, no, we trust in this. And what you need really to carry that off is an actor of Mahershala's caliber who can do that, and for it to be subtle enough, but for it to still read. So that was just, it was just a really, really brilliant part of the whole thing to watch how he navigated that.
Amazing. And Rebecca, am I right in saying that COVID affected the shoot initially? What was that like as a producer, kind of dealing with that? And
well, actually, initially it didn't. Initially we were okay. It was coming. It was in Europe, but we didn't really realize, and we were in Vancouver. It was because it was February when we got to Vancouver, and then it was March the 12th when the production was shut down. So we had a bit of a run, just less than a month.
You had already started shooting?
Well, no, we hadn't started shooting. We were prepping.
Okay.
And then March 12th it shut down. But actually, you know, it worked out well for us in terms of we had a lot of work to do, right? So that gave us extra time. One of the most important jobs that, you know, Ben was able to do because of the additional time we had was he was able to storyboard the entire movie, which is definitely not something we would have had the time to do had it not been delayed. And, you know, we kept working throughout the period that we were technically, you know, like down on, like, you know, Apple very kindly kept some of the art department going. And so mainly the HODs and myself and Ben, the producers, we kept working throughout that time. And so it really kind of worked, and it wasn't ideal, obviously. And, you know, if we could change it, we would. But, you know, it did work in our favor in terms of the prep, because we were definitely more prepared. Like, we were supposed to initially shoot in May, and then we didn't actually shoot till November. So it allowed us to get quite a bit of work done.
And did you come across any other kind of problems along the way, kind of production problems along the way that like you wouldn't have expected, or did it feel quite smooth after been able to have so much prep?
There's always going to be problems along the way, and it's just about solving them and moving on together as a team. And we were a really good team. We had great producers. Ben was phenomenal. I'm slightly biased, but I think anyone else on the team would say it was like he'd done it 100 times before, you know. He was a great kind of captain of our ship. And we were, you know, when you're in that situation, on a professional level, you just get on with it. On a personal level, it's quite hard, right? Because you're on the other side of the world. You're there for longer than expected. You're in a bubble. You have to be very conscientious of the people around you. You know, we weren't in a position where we could be like going off to meet friends and go to restaurants and stuff like that. We were getting tested all the time. You know, every 2 or 3 days we were getting tested, and you know, it was quite regimented. Apple were phenomenal in terms of the protection that we had. And we had an incredible COVID team, and we all adhered to the rules, and we got through it by being a kind of united front. But you know, it was definitely challenging, and yeah, in regards to kind of any bumps along the way, there's always bumps. I won't air any dirty laundry, but we got past everything, and you know, everyone. It was really an amazing team. I was actually saying to someone earlier today, I would go back to Vancouver in a heartbeat and shoot there again. You know, they were.
I mean, for both of you, for your first feature, to do your first feature during a pandemic on the other side of the world, I mean, it's just so impressive. It really is. And like Ben, like you were saying, yeah, sorry, go on, Rebecca.
No, I was just going to say it's good in a way. Like, I'm always a fan of being thrown in the deep end, you know, because you learn a lot. It's not ideal at the time, obviously, but you learn so much, and we learned a lot, and you know, we'll take that with us into the next.
Absolutely. And I think, Ben, you were saying earlier how, you know, you were quite precious, feels like the wrong word, but in regards to, you know, bringing it to big companies like Apple, because you didn't want it to change in regards to it turning into a big action or a big sci-fi kind of film. Because one thing that I really love about Swan Song is that it is set in the future, you know, with its kind of self-driving cars, and, you know, it can be seen in a way as a sci-fi, but it really actually doesn't feel too futuristic or like it's in a sci-fi genre. It just feels like a human story. So was that a really kind of conscious decision, that the fact that it's in the future is really just to kind of allow the kind of future way of thinking, and that you didn't want it to be kind of too that kind of polished sci-fi kind of futuristic feel? You just wanted it to be more relatable.
100%. Yeah, that was one of the biggest things about it. for me was that we knew what the film was, you know, from early drafts of the script. We knew it was never going to veer, you know, into that other sort of genre space. I think that the genre was useful for us because, you know, for me writing it and then making it, it was like I knew that I could lean into some of those genre elements as a sort of tension keeping device, let's say, and know about the, you know, the historical kind of effect or whatever you want to call it of those films, you know, like that where I mean, I don't want to give away too many spoilers, so I'm trying to say this without, you know, doing that. But just the idea that, you know, you can dip into genre and know what the audience brings to a film and use that as a device, I think. So that was useful. But knowing the identity of what a film is just really important, because you can then have a vision that people can rally around and know that it's clear. And I think that was one of the things, like with Anonymous initially, who were also just so great at supporting that. And then with Apple, it was like, this is the script. It's pretty clear in the script. And then when I talk about it, the stuff that you just spoke about there, about the aesthetics of the film and how we kept it grounded, and the sci-fi never took over. All of those things everybody got on board with, because they knew it, at its heart, this was just about the relationships and about the human drama at the center of it. And that actually it would have felt out of step to veer into something that, you know, pushed too hard into that genre or started to pull the curtain back on the science and everything. Like, you know, some people are going to watch this film and be disappointed because it isn't a Black Mirror episode or it isn't Ex Machina, you know, there are things that I absolutely love, but this film just isn't that. And so some people will go in with an expectation and want it to be something else, but it was never going to be that. I think like what you do with the design of a world and the world building, in this case, is you need to give enough world building so that the authenticity of the world is there and the audience feel like they're in good hands in that sense, and that they can buy into the fact that we're 20 years or so into the future and that this kind of technology might exist. So you do need to be aware of like that sort of tipping point. And so, you know, the touches that we did include in the film, the self-driving cars, the augmented reality sort of communication systems and the video game and things like that, they're there to make sure that we do buy into it. But whenever we felt like it was veering too far or we didn't need more touches of the future in it, we would pull back. And also in all the aesthetic decisions, it was always about trying to keep it minimal and understated. You know, Annie Beecham, our incredible production designer, and Michael, our excellent art director, were just great at sort of supporting that and saying, well, how can we make it minimal? How can we make it not flashy and not feel like other sci-fi films that we've seen? So it was really nice to have everybody jump into that and be, you know, pulling in the same direction and know why we were pulling in that direction together, you know?
And as you said there about kind of feeling like you're there, which brings me on to the gorgeous moments that we kind of visit along the way of all of their memories in the past, you know, the kind of montages and the vignettes, or that nearly felt like, I don't know, I imagine you maybe felt like you were nearly shooting another film on top of the one that you were, because there was just so many, even if they were only split seconds. But I imagine you obviously spent the time and you know, really took care of each memory that you were creating. Was that all scripted or was it improv? And like, what was the kind of, did you want to have a conscious difference in shooting style between the two?
Yeah, there's loads to jump into there. So the memories in the film in terms of improv, the bigger, the sort of the scenes like the opening on the train and things like that were fully scripted. But the little snippets of memory that we see as, you know, the memories are transferred and things like that, they were mostly improv, or I would roughly script them out. But we improv that. The first day we shot, I really fought to get this, and it was like a half day shoot where we just did the wedding stuff, and it was a full day of improv. And I wanted to do that for a number of reasons. One was, you know, to allow us as a team and the actors and everybody to get used to this vibe that I was going to be trying to create and trying to do, which was, you know, sometimes some long improv scenes and taking snippets from them. And on the spot. Like sometimes I'd get a little idea and I'd be able to give it to the actors and they'd just come up with the magic then. And it was great. So that was a big part of the whole thing. But it was also for, Masanobu, our wonderful DP, to get into that vibe of sort of being right there with the actors and feel like a participant and make it feel subjective, like how memories kind of feel. Sometimes they look, right down the lens, but often he's just right there almost in a dance with them, I think. And I knew that was going to contrast with our shooting style for the present day, which was a lot more considered and, slow pushing, symmetrical frames, kind of trying to sort of look at what Cameron was going through and his sort of locked in predicament. He's really dealing with this very difficult situation where it's a conundrum with no easy answers. So I wanted to try and represent that through how the camera was very sort of considered and composed. But then for our memories, I wanted it to be really like free flowing and just the camera to really sort of dance with them. So that was it. That was the contrast between the two. And I felt also that getting moments of improv for those snippets would also feel really loose and playful, and we'd find beautiful moments of truth. And so Naomi and Mahershala and the other actors were just phenomenal at finding these moments. We've got so much great stuff that
I was just going to say, I'd nearly watch a film of just all of those. If you could release just footage of Mahershala and Naomi, I'll watch that, no problem.
Yeah, 100%. We wish we had more time to go through and find more little bits, but I think what we did find and what made it into the film is great. And it hopefully, I hoped that it would the little bits that you see would paint to a really full life, a much bigger world outside those moments, and we'd make that up ourselves. Yeah,
it really helps. The stakes are already incredibly high, but it really just does help because you have such a short space of time to get your audience on board and to fall in love with these characters. So I just think they work perfectly. They're really, really gorgeous. Rebecca, you were saying that you obviously came on board then kind of more separately with Ben with this other production company. So what was that like as a solo producer working with a new big kind of international production company? How was the kind of the jump from kind of shorts and that into now this kind of big feature?
Good question. Well, I had imposter syndrome, obviously, immediately. I was flying over and I was very concerned about kind of my capabilities, but I just figured this is going to be a great learning experience and that I would just absorb as much as I could. And that's what I did, It was, and it just ended up, we ended up becoming a team, very, very quickly. And, you have that thing when you're starting any job that you have your doubts. But I knew that Ben and I worked a certain way and that we would work that way and that everything would be fine in that regard. And then just in terms of the rest of the production, really, honestly, it's just everything is just bigger, right, than commercials and shorts. It's not that it's massively different. It's just on a bigger scale, it's a journey, and very, very quickly. I think maybe about a month in, I felt very comfortable, and it was just about getting the head down. And, there was certain elements of the production that I felt more comfortable in than others. And, for example, for the casting, I always found those meetings really interesting and inspiring, and you're hearing names that you never thought you'd be uttering out of your mouth in the context of whether or not they'd be in a movie that you're working on, which is really, really exciting. But for a lot of those calls at the beginning, I stayed quite quiet. I was just like, because I hadn't gone through that process before at this level. And then, then there was other areas like, scouts and locations and, set bills and studios. And, we'd be talking about post early on, visual effects, like those elements I felt more comfortable with, even though they were on visual effects in particular, a much bigger level than anything I'd experienced before. But yeah, you get comfortable within your environment and then you just go for it. Right.
Ben, can I jump in and just add this, because Rebecca's being modest here, but Rebecca came in as a co-producer, and joined the show, and she worked her way up to EP and then all the way up to full producer, to become you know, a full producer on the film, however many months it was into it, and to be one of the most vital people working on the entire film, you know, and all the way through to post, and, you know, really just but the producer on the ground back in Ireland, you know, and so it was amazing. It was so brilliant to see, you know, how you just came in and very quickly just worked your way up. I think it was phenomenal. I just wanted to say that because you're brilliant at it, but it was brilliant.
I think I'd say, Ben, as well, for you, it must have been nice to have, because you guys have worked together before, to have that shorthand with Rebecca. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes maybe big production companies can be kind of quite scary, or quite, you know, who am I getting in touch with? Whereas the fact that you had Rebecca there, I'd say was quite nice to have that along the process.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was great. And it was, you know, we Anonymous are brilliant, and all the people in there are amazing. So we got really lucky. Like, our partners were great. And everybody else, you know, Jonathan King, Mimi Valdez, like all of our producers, actually, we just had a great team. So that was lovely. But having Rebecca there, I think even like just, we both, because it was so crazy, and you're stepping onto set and there's like 200 people and all these trucks and big stars. It was just, you know, it's the kind of thing where you're like, wow, this is crazy. But to have a mate there, even just, you know, like literally just, I think both of us just as friends, to go through that with a friend, like, aside from the fact that we were working together every day, and that whole thing was so great, you know, and to have Rebecca there on my, you know, by my side, and for us to be talking through all the things that you do in a day-to-day, but actually just to stand there sometimes on set or whatever and be like, this is nuts. Like, that was a great thing. And, you know, I think that was actually, for both of us, I would say, Rebecca, I know we've kind of spoke about this, but yeah, that was just infinitely useful, I think, too.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. And like, there's a few moments that stand out for me, but like one in particular was when we like went right before, well, it was before COVID hit, and I just arrived in Vancouver, and we used to have these meetings, and we were in the studio. And like, I was even like taken and starstruck by the studio. I was like, wow, look at this. There's nothing kind of on this level in Ireland. And we went into this meeting room, and there was a long table, and loads of people came in, and like Ben had obviously been on the ground, and I mean, like, on the ground in the US for much longer than me. We were obviously up in Vancouver now, so he was kind of used to these big meetings. But for me, you know, we were sitting in there, and there was a lot of people in the room, you know, there was maybe about 30 people there, and he was sitting at the top of the table, and I was like breaking it for him. I was like, oh my God, like, how is he going to cope here? And it was amazing just watching him, you know, taking the reins. It was kind of pretty inspiring. I was like, okay, right, let's do this, you know. And there was a lot of those moments along the way. Like, I vividly remember him, you know, walking into the studio for the first time, right? And like, this is like, we're about to have this incredibly massive set built into this studio. And I remember you walking in, Ben, I was thinking, like, I think this is his first like studio shoot, like, and this is going to be his like first set build, like, and it was just enormous, right? Like, so the whole, when Mahershala and Glenn walked down the stairs, this is not a spoiler because it's early on, but when they walk down the stairs, you know where, in the facility, and that's all a build. From the moment they walk through those stairs all the way down, all the way through, that's all Annie Beecham and Michael Diner's and obviously Ben's work of art set. So,
because I was going to ask about like the recce, obviously you were saying you shot in Canada, because the scenery is just so beautiful, but actually so much of that, the inside is all set design and set build. That's so impressive. That's very, very, very cool. But as like Rebecca, as you said, like the way you learn is just throwing yourself in and just getting stuck in and learning along the way. And Ben, for you with this first feature, what do you think you'll take from this onto your next projects? Like, kind of what was the main difference, obviously other than the scale? What was kind of the main difference, or was there any from shooting shorts to features?
Well, one thing I'll take is don't put your movie 20 years in the future. It's an absolute nightmare. No, it was, you know, I think it's just to echo what you're saying. I think if you jump in at the deep end, it's really, really difficult at the start. But you take, I've taken good confidence from it. I think, you know, I feel more confident going in to my next one, which is lovely. It builds a bit of a confidence builder, I think. But yeah, the difference between the shorts and the feature, I think, like what Rebecca was saying, it really does transpose up quite nicely. It's just much bigger. The pressure in this film was really huge. I think it got much bigger than I was thinking at the start, when I started writing it, like, oh, let's try and make a 5 million, small feature. I wasn't thinking we'd get stars or any of that kind of stuff. So it really mushroomed into something I had never thought it was going to. But the same things do apply. The pressure I felt with Stutterer, my short, was kind of similar because I hadn't done anything back then. And so it was like, it felt at the time like it was huge. I put like every penny I had on the, in the world into it, and just had never done anything. So it was like, I don't know, it sort of does transpose up, and the things you learn by jumping into deep end, making a short does carry through. I think like, well, it's directing's weird because you don't get on set much. Like I hadn't been on set for 6 years or something, and I'd only ever been on set 15 times or something in my life. So it was a real learning on the job type thing for me. But we shot for about 50 days, and a few days in, you feel like you've got a good handle on it. And then you just keep learning, I think.
Also, like, sorry, just to jump in as well, because this is important for any kind of filmmakers or aspiring filmmakers that are listening. It's like, he is the king of prep, right? His attention to detail is second to none, but he is the biggest prepper I've ever met in my life, and takes so much time. I think that there's a lot of filmmakers out there at the moment, and I totally appreciate, the want to get your films and your content out there. But rushing is never a good idea. Take your time. I know it can be painful. I know you want to be at the races. I know you want everyone to see your work. I know you want to get established and so on. But if you take the hit on the time front, you'll progress so much faster, and like Ben was writing for years. So like before we started working as a producer and director, he was writing these scripts, and we had a production company called Tidal, and we used to be reading these scripts being like, these are amazing, you should be directing, and then, he decided eventually to direct, and he took his time and he crafted Stutter so carefully and so perfectly that he won himself an Oscar. It's such a beautiful story, and it's the same thing with all your work, Ben. You don't rush, you prep. And so you may not have been on set for years, and you might have only been on set X number of times, but you were so prepared that everybody, all these seasoned pros around him, felt very, very safe in his hands. And I don't think anyone was questioning. We were like, sure, Ben, and like, anything you want, let's do this, within financial reason. But yeah,
that's the producer coming at you there, Rebecca. But it's so true. Like prep is it's king. And like I think as well, in the times that we're in, because everything feels so fast as well, there is that kind of pressure of these, and the standards are just rising and rising, you know what I mean? So I think that is a really, really good point, to just take a breath and take a step and just make sure you're doing it at your own pace, and not to say everyone else's or what you feel like the correct pace or where you should be,
And so take your time as well, because it's such an investment to your crew and your producers, and you all go through such a rig. Like, I mean, even if it's a short, if it's a commercial, no matter what it is, everybody has invested in that, and everybody's worked really, really hard. So, you see Ben sitting here or me sitting here, we're referencing the producers and the HODs. There was a crew of 200 beyond that worked so hard over the months that we were shooting, and the lead up to it. And like, it's their movie too,
Well, it's definitely getting its recognition. I mean, everyone is talking about it. Everyone that I talk to is talking about it and seen it and loves it. But I did want to go back really briefly, because I really wanted to ask, Ben, when you were shooting Cameron and Jack scenes, did you shoot them where you kind of switched back and forth, or did you kind of do all of Cameron and then all of Jack, or what was that process like? Because I imagine for Marshall, it was like, obviously he's playing two different people, so I had to kind of tap in and out of those two. I imagine must have been seriously challenging.
Yeah, that was a massive thing for him to get through, and how he did it. I mean, it was kind of amazing. But the general way we do it would be to try to not have back and forth wherever possible. That wasn't always possible. We'd always try and shoot out one side first wherever we could. You pick the character who's leading the scene. That would tend to be Cameron, a few times Jack. And so that would be how you'd start it out. We had a great double, Shane Dean, who was acting across from Mahershala, and we'd start out with kind of blocking, rehearsals, and we'd start to find Mahershala would start to ask Shane for things that he thought he might do, and we'd start to get it on its feet a bit and find a bit of a rhythm for the scene, and he'd be thinking ahead to things he might do, as Jack, if he's Cameron. And so that was kind of the starting point. We have a bit of an idea about how it was going to play out, and then we'd start to shoot his coverage on that side. We'd shoot all that out, and then we'd flip over. Now, a thing that I found that was really useful was that what I do is I take the audio from what Mahershala had done as Cameron, and I'd play that back for him as when he went to be Jack. And actually that was a great breakthrough when we started doing that, because it really preserved the kind of cadence and rhythm of his performance. And Mahershala's got such an amazing sort of rhythm, it's like, so that was really great. So Shane would be there across from him, but he'd be hearing his own audio. And sometimes I'd, mix up the takes a little bit to keep it fresh for him. So be getting different reads, but it was that was a really great part of it. And then I suppose technically there's, we tried to be as simple as we could. Myself and Massa, our DP, would always, the litmus test was, how would we shoot this if we actually had two actors? And if we ever thought we were kind of showing off or whatever for the sake of it, we'd chop it. I think early on when you're shooting one actor for two, you do need to sell it. So there's a few shots early on where we sort of, in that first shot we see him, I guess it's not really much of a spoiler, but, we bring him in on Steadicam and then we pan over and reveal Jack. And there's shots like that where I wanted it to feel, like we weren't hiding away or we were being safe, because I wanted the audience to just, dissolve into believing that, oh, there's two of them, so you do have to get to that point of kind of feeling the authenticity of it. But then after that, we tried to be as simple as we could. It was often just locked off, shots, split screens. We didn't use motion control at all in the film. Once we used a repeatable head, and that was once for the dog shot, which was kind of a crazy one to try and time out. I was there sitting behind the camera, like, trying to time it out. Like I'd be like, okay, and dog, I was like saying dog barks and all this. It was a crazy timing thing and the repeatable head, but we tried to keep it as untechnical as possible. And that was really because of the content of the scenes. I knew that Mahershala was going to these really difficult places as Cameron and Jack, so I didn't want him to have to wait around for 40 minutes as we tried to get motion control to behave or whatever, which is often the case. So that was I think that's hopefully answering most of that. Is that the kind of
it
stuff?
has, and it's just made it even more impressive. I didn't think we could get there, but it has. It does. It did. It just felt so smooth, because for such a kind of bumpy ride that he's on, the whole film is just, it's such a smooth watch, and it's really, really beautifully done. So congratulations, both of you, on a really gorgeous film. And I know it's still traveling and the success is still building. Ben, you've written and directed a lot of stuff. And do you think that's kind of the format you're going to kind of continue on? Or are you open to just writing something and someone else directing it, or just directing something? Or what does that look like, do you think?
Yeah, both actually. I'm kind of developing a few things at the moment, and I wouldn't be able to direct them all. So yeah, I guess I will be doing the more kind of writing, maybe producing of those ones. But yeah, I think probably with features, I'm going to be trying to do it where I find a project that I've written myself, or that someone else has written. If a script landed in my lap that I loved, I don't need to write it at all. I mean, great, half the work's done, so I would do that. But yeah, so that, but I think there's definitely a world where I am definitely developing stuff at the moment, some TV stuff that I don't plan on directing. So yeah, it's fun though. It's great getting back into this after so many years being so immersed in one project, my brain is just like loving it, so.
Amazing. Well, we look forward to hearing all of the future projects. Thank you both so much for coming on to chat to me. I really, really do appreciate it. But as we are a little film podcast, I did want to ask, I'm going to start asking everyone now in our season 2 of the podcast, if either of you had, you can answer both or just one, if either of you had a film that has impacted your life in some way, and also what is your favorite Irish film? So Rebecca, I'll go with you first.
Okay. A film that's impacted me, probably Cinema Paradiso. It's a tough one for me. There's loads of ones I want to say, Magnolia, Birdman, there's loads, but and also The Big Lebowski. There's just so many films that have influenced me, but Cinema Paradiso is very close to my heart. And then Irish wise, I have to say it's an Irish director. So it wasn't actually shot in Ireland, but Maudie. I don't know if you ever saw Maudie by Aisling Walsh. Like that, that movie is just absolutely phenomenal. I loved it. And in Ireland, probably My Left Foot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh no, don't you worry. If there's anyone connected that's Irish, it's an Irish film. We're gonna claim it.
Well, then Maudie and My Left Foot. And again, there's a load of Irish films as well. I'd be here for ages. I'm like,
Of course. And Ben, what about you?
Film that affected me, I suppose. Eternal Sunshine, maybe. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. There's loads of films, but I suppose that one. There was films I saw growing up that just the imagination in them really appealed to me for whatever reason, and sort of gelled with my own sort of things that I've been scribbling on, in notebooks and stuff for years. So I was kind of really inspired by that kind of thing. And then Irish, all of Lenny Abrahamson's films probably, because they're just so great. In the Name of the Father as well, though. I think In the Name of the Father was just, superb.
Amazing. It
Maudie,
is a tough.
I forgot about Maudie. Yeah, I remember you sending that to me at the time, Rebecca. I love that movie. Yeah, it's great.
I loved it. It should have gotten a lot more attention and recognition than it did. I mean, I saw Aisling Walsh at the IFTAs, and I was just like, she got the IFTA and she deserved it. And she deserved, a lot more recognition beyond that. I mean, it was just a phenomenal film.
Well, if anyone who's listening hasn't seen it, definitely add it to the list, which I think this is why as well I love asking people their favorite Irish film, because there are so many that I think just slipped under the radar. There's so many that you say and people say, oh, I haven't seen it. So definitely do and look that up. And it is a tough question. I didn't want to ask favorite film because I think that's just a ridiculous question. But there is always sometimes some films where, they hit differently or they spark something or something like that. So thank you both so much.
I'm surprised you didn't say No Country, Ben. I was like, I actually left No Country off because I was like, Ben's going to say No Country. So,
well, it's that thing of like favorite versus something that changed. But yeah,
fair enough.
No Country, Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, exactly. We should have done this at the start. Thanks a million, guys. And at Irish Film London, we wish you both the best with all of your future successes. Hopefully we'll have you on again. And have a great week, and we'll chat to you very soon.
Cheers. Thanks
so much.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
And that's it for this week's interview. Thank you all so much for listening. We hope you really enjoyed it. Thank you to Culture Ireland and the Irish Emigrant Support Programme. Myself and Gerry will be back in a fortnight with a brand new interview. See you then.